If you want to, just do it, someone whispered, half joking, half afraid. The rancher laughed, a sharp, nervous sound that cut through the dusty afternoon air. He had spent his whole life listening to warnings. Don't cross that fence. Don't challenge the council. Don't touch what isn't yours. The town survived on fear as much as it did on cattle and dry land. But that day, something in him snapped. His eyes burned with excitement, the kind that comes when a person realizes they have nothing left to lose. The old rules suddenly felt small, cowardly. People were watching from behind curtains, pretending not to care, pretending they wouldn't remember. He stepped forward anyway. What he did next was unthinkable, not because it was violent, but because it was defiant. He opened the locked gates that had been sealed for generations. Land that had been controlled by a few powerful families was suddenly free. Cattle wandered, dust rose, gasps spread like wildfire. Someone shouted. Another laughed. Panic followed. Within minutes, the entire town was in chaos. Authority collapsed, secrets spilled, and long-buried grudges came alive. All because one rancher chose action over fear. That evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, people would argue about whether he was a hero or a fool. But one thing was certain. After that day, nothing in the town would ever be the same again. The afternoon, sun hung low over the town, turning the dust into floating gold. The rancher stood near the old wooden fence, wiping sweat from his brow. The fence wasn't special to outsiders, but to this town it was sacred. Beyond it lay land no one was allowed to touch. A few men stood nearby, pretending to fix tools, pretending not to stare. Don't, one of them muttered under his breath. Another leaned closer and whispered with a nervous laugh, if you want to, just do it. It was meant as a joke, a release of fear. But the rancher felt something ignite inside him. His heart began to race, not from fear but from excitement. For years he had obeyed rules he never agreed with, rules made by people who never worked the land, never bled for it. He looked around and noticed the silence. Even the wind seemed to be waiting. The rancher stepped toward the gate. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped a wrench. A woman watching from her window covered her mouth. You'll regret this, an old man shouted. The rancher didn't answer. He grabbed the rusted lock, hands steady, eyes burning, and broke it open. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Then slowly, deliberately, he pushed the gates wide open. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cattle began to move. Dust clouds rose. The forbidden land, untouched for decades, was suddenly alive again. Panic exploded. People shouted. Bells rang. Someone ran toward the council building. Others followed the cattle, unsure whether to stop them or cheer. The rancher stood there, breathing hard, knowing there was no turning back. By sunset, the town was